Dad, stop. The entire chapel went silent. 200 guests gasped as 10-year-old Xavier Matthews stood up, a manila folder shaking in his hands. At the altar, his father Louis froze, confusion spreading across his face. The bride, Alexandra, beautiful in her white dress, went pale. "This wedding can't happen," Xavier's voice cracked. "Alexandra is dying. And she has a daughter no one knows about." The bouquet hit the floor. But here's what nobody expected. This wasn't a story about a villain. This was about a desperate mother, a hidden sick child, and an impossible choice that would tear a family apart before bringing them together. How did a 10-year-old uncover a secret that broke hearts but might just save lives? Stay with us, because what happens next will change everything you think you know about right and wrong. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from, and if this story moves you, hit that subscribe button. Now, let's go back to where it all started. 9 months before that wedding, Louis Matthews stood exhausted in a construction site, staring at blueprints. His wife Naomi had been gone 3 years, and every night felt the same: empty house, worried son, and work that kept him from thinking too much. Those windows will bring beautiful light for the children. Louis looked up. A woman in navy scrubs stood beside him, blonde ponytail, calm green eyes. "Alexandra Page," she extended her hand. "Hospice nurse. You're the architect." Louis Matthews. Over the next few weeks, something unexpected happened. Alexandra kept showing up at the site during nursing tours, and unlike every other woman who'd tried to date Louis, she didn't avoid talking about Naomi. "How long were you married?" Alexandra asked one afternoon. 12 years. She was a doctor. Best person I ever knew." Louis waited for the uncomfortable silence that always came next. Instead, Alexandra said, "Tell me about her." And he did. For the first time in 3 years, Louis talked about his wife without someone changing the subject or offering empty platitudes. "I lost my sister to breast cancer," Alexandra shared. "And a son, stillborn, 10 years ago. Grief doesn't disappear. We just learn to carry it." Louis felt something shift. Finally, someone who understood. When he asked her to coffee, his hands shook. "Xavier comes too. I don't date without my son meeting." "I'd be disappointed if he didn't," Alexandra said simply. That Saturday at the diner, Xavier sat across from her, arms crossed, jaw set. Louis recognized the armor. His son had worn it through 2 years of well-meaning women who tried too hard. But Alexandra didn't try hard at all. "What position do you play?" she asked Xavier, nodding at his basketball jacket. "Point guard," Xavier muttered. "Your mom taught you to play?" Xavier's head snapped up. Most people avoided mentioning his mom. She loved basketball. What else did she love? Drawing birds. She said they represented freedom. Xavier's voice was barely audible. Alexandra smiled softly. "That's beautiful. Do you still draw them?" Something in Xavier's shoulders relaxed. This woman wasn't trying to replace his mom. She was honoring her memory. On the drive home, Xavier was quiet. Then, "She's okay, Dad. Not like the others." Louis felt hope for the first time in years. He had no idea what Alexandra was hiding. Alexandra understood something the others didn't: boundaries. She never showed up unannounced. Never tried to redecorate. Never sat in Naomi's front row seat at Xavier's basketball games. She brought her own coffee mug instead of using Naomi's. She asked before putting photos on the fridge. Small things. Everything. "Dad, she gets it," Xavier said one night after Alexandra left. "She's not trying to be mom." Weeks became months. Alexandra showed up to Xavier's 10th birthday with a basketball signed by his favorite player. She'd researched without broadcasting it. She sat through Louis's boring architecture presentations and actually asked smart questions. Xavier started smiling again. Louis started sleeping through the night. The house stopped feeling like a museum. 8 months in, Louis stood in a jewelry store, palms sweating. "Dad." Xavier appeared at the entrance, exactly where Louis had asked him to meet. "You're really gonna ask her?" Xavier studied the rings. "Only if you're okay with it. Son, if you're not ready." I'm ready. Xavier pointed to a simple platinum band with small diamonds. Mom's was gold and big, right? So this one's different. Its own thing. Louis's throat tightened. His son understood. Honor the past, build something new. They bought the ring together. 2 weeks later, Louis proposed at the hospital's pediatric wing dedication, the building where they'd met. Alexandra cried when she said yes. For just a moment, something flickered across her face. Fear. Sadness. But it vanished so fast Louis convinced himself he'd imagined it. The wedding was set for 6 months away. That night, Louis watched Alexandra and Xavier laugh over cake samples, his heart full. The hardest chapters were finally behind them. Or so he thought. 2 weeks before the wedding, Xavier left his basketball in Alexandra's trunk after practice. Her keys sat on the hallway table while she laughed with Louis over seating charts in the kitchen. Xavier grabbed them without thinking. The trunk popped open. There was his basketball, wedged beside a grocery bag and spare tire. But as he reached for it, the bag tipped over. Prescription bottles scattered across the trunk. Xavier froze. Ondansetron, oxycodone, compazine. His mother had been a doctor. She'd taught him medical terms like vocabulary words. Knowledge removes fear, she'd said. If you understand medicine, hospitals won't scare you. But Xavier was scared now. Ondansetron, that was for cancer patients. Chemo nausea. Oxycodone, serious pain. Not headaches. The kind that doesn't stop. Then he saw the 4th bottle. The sticker made his stomach drop. Palliative Care Services, St. Catherine's Hospital. Palliative care. His mom had worked in that department before her own diagnosis. She'd explained it to him. We help people who are dying be comfortable. Dying. Xavier's hands trembled as he checked the patient name. Alexandra M. Page. The dates, all filled within the last 2 months. Recent. Current. Active. Beneath the bottles, something else caught the light. A hospital bracelet. Alexandra Page, D.O.B., August 14, 1985, admit date, March 15, 2026, oncology ward. Oncology. Cancer. Through the kitchen window, Xavier could see Alexandra and his father bent over wedding plans, both smiling. She looked healthy, normal, alive. But the evidence was in his hands. Alexandra was dying. And she hadn't said a word. Xavier spent 3 days drowning in questions. Maybe she'd beaten it. Maybe the meds were just preventative. Maybe there was an explanation. But the way she touched his father's face, it looked like goodbye. Thursday evening, Alexandra kissed Louis at the door. Visiting a friend across town. Hospital colleague going through a rough patch. I promised I'd check in weekly. Xavier watched from his bedroom window as her car pulled away. Before he could second-guess himself, he grabbed his bike and followed. The route felt familiar. Too familiar. When Alexandra turned onto Mercy Street, Xavier's breath caught. He knew this street. His mom had volunteered here monthly. St. Mary's Facility for Medically Fragile Children, the old brick building at the end of the block. Why would Alexandra come here? Xavier hid his bike and slipped around to the courtyard, the same path his mom used to take him. Through the windows, most curtains were drawn, but he moved carefully, searching. Then he saw her. Alexandra sat beside a hospital bed, her back to the window. In the bed was a little girl, maybe 7, surrounded by monitors and tubes. Her breathing looked labored even from outside. Alexandra was reading aloud, her shoulders shaking. The little girl reached out a thin hand, and Alexandra clutched it desperately, pressing it to her cheek. Even through the glass, Xavier could read her lips. I love you. I love you so much. Xavier's eyes found the nameplate beside the door. Sophia Page, age 7, room 340. Page. Alexandra's last name. The world tilted. Alexandra had a daughter. A sick daughter. A daughter no one knew about. Where was Sophia's father? Why was she here alone? And why, with a wedding 2 weeks away, had Alexandra never mentioned she had a child? Xavier watched Alexandra cry over this little girl, and suddenly the medication bottles made terrible sense. Both of them were dying. Xavier couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Sophia's small hand reaching for her mother. His mother used to say, "When you're scared, gather information. Knowledge is power, even when the truth hurts." The next afternoon, Louis at a site inspection, Alexandra in the shower, Xavier did something he'd never done before. He went through her bag. Inside her leather tote, beneath her wallet, he found a manila folder. The first document made him nauseous. Patient, Alexandra Marie Page. Diagnosis, Stage 4 ovarian cancer, recurrent. Prognosis, 14 to 18 months median survival. 14 to 18 months. She was actually dying. The next papers were worse. Petition for guardianship transfer, minor child Sophia Page. Legal documents showing how custody would transfer to Louis Matthews, stepfather, upon Alexandra's death. Stepfather. Louis didn't even know Sophia existed. Xavier's hands shook as he flipped through more pages. Foster care documentation. Sophia had been in state care since birth due to medical complexity. Visitation logs, weekly visits for 7 years. Then he found the letter. Handwritten. Addressed to Sophia. Xavier knew he shouldn't read it. He couldn't stop. My darling Sophia. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. I'm so sorry I couldn't make your body strong enough to come home. But I made sure you won't be alone. Louis and Xavier are good men. The best I've ever known. They don't know about you yet. I was waiting for the right time, after the wedding, when we were a legal family and they couldn't say no. I know it's wrong to trick them. I know you deserve parents who chose you. But sweetheart, I'm running out of time, and you're running out of chances. Louis will love you. I've seen how he loves Xavier. And Xavier has his mother's compassionate heart. Forgive me for the deception. Forgive me for leaving. I made sure of it, baby girl. You'll have a family. Xavier's tears fell onto the paper, smudging ink. Alexandra wasn't evil. She was a desperate mother trying to save her daughter the only way she knew how. And Xavier had 10 days to decide whether to destroy that plan. Xavier didn't sleep for 3 nights. Was Alexandra's plan wrong? Yes. Was it evil? That was the question crushing him. Sophia needed a family. Louis was kind and capable. But shouldn't his dad get to choose? Xavier imagined Sophia in that sterile room, waiting for a mother who visited weekly but could never take her home. 7 years old. No bedroom of her own. Never permanently wanted. Louis could give her that. What if Xavier stayed silent? Louis would marry Alexandra, discover Sophia eventually, probably after Alexandra died. Would his father feel trapped? Would he resent a sick child he'd been tricked into raising? What if he spoke up? Alexandra's plan crumbles. Sophia stays in that facility. Alexandra dies knowing her daughter has no one. Either way, someone gets destroyed. On the 3rd night, Xavier pulled out his mother's old ethics textbook, the one with her handwriting in the margins. He found the chapter on autonomy, underlined 3 times. Respect for persons requires that subjects be given the opportunity to choose. To deprive someone of this choice, regardless of motivation, is to treat them as a means to an end. Xavier closed the book. His father deserved the truth. His father deserved the choice. Even if that choice broke everyone's hearts. Even if Sophia paid the price. Because you couldn't build real love on stolen choices. Xavier knew what he had to do. Back to the present, the chapel fell silent as Xavier stood, legs trembling. 200 guests held their breath. At the altar, Louis's smile died. Alexandra's bouquet lowered. She knew. Xavier saw her understand. I'm sorry. Xavier opened the manila folder. Dad, everyone, this wedding can't happen. Not like this. Xavier, son, Louis started forward. Alexandra is dying. The words tore from Xavier's throat. Stage 4 cancer. 18 months left, maybe. And she has a daughter, Sophia, 7 years old, at St. Mary's Medical Facility. Dad, you don't know about her because she never told you. Gasps rippled through the chapel. Louis froze, face draining of color. Alexandra didn't deny it. Her bouquet fell, white roses scattering. She collapsed onto the pew like her strings were cut, hands covering her face, body folding inward. The sound that came from her wasn't anger. It was devastation. "Alexandra!" Louis's voice barely a whisper. She looked up, mascara streaming, composure shattered. When she spoke, her voice was raw. "I'm dying. Sophia is dying." The chapel went dead silent. "She has a congenital heart condition and chronic lung disease. Been in care since birth because I couldn't afford to bring her home. I visited every week for 7 years, watching her wait for a family that never came." Her breath hitched, tears streaming. "I love you, Louis. That part was never a lie. But I'm running out of time, and Sophia—" She couldn't finish. "So you were going to trap me?" Louis's voice held no anger, only profound hurt. "I was going to give her you." Alexandra's whisper cut through the silence. "I watched you with Xavier. I saw how you love. And I thought, if you were already my husband, already legally her stepfather, you couldn't say no. You'd have to keep her. Maybe love her eventually." She looked at Xavier, eyes pleading. "I just wanted her to know love before we both run out of time. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know any other way." The chapel held its breath. Because what do you say when desperation and deception collide with dying children? There were no villains here. Only impossible situations and breaking hearts. 3 days after the wedding that never happened, Louis drove to St. Mary's with Xavier in the passenger seat. Neither had spoken much. Alexandra had moved back to her apartment, leaving Sophia's room number behind. Xavier expected his father to cut Alexandra off completely. Instead, Louis said, "I need to see her. I need to understand." The facility smelled like antiseptic and effort. A nurse led them to room 340. Through the window, Xavier saw her, the small figure from the courtyard. Sophia was awake, propped against pillows, tubes running from her nose and arms. She clutched a worn teddy bear with one eye missing. She looked impossibly small. "Sophia!" The nurse knocked. "You have visitors." The little girl turned. She had Alexandra's eyes, green and large in her pale face. Those eyes lit up with hope that physically hurt to witness. "Are you my new family?" Sophia's voice was soft, breathless. "Mama said I was getting a new family. Are you them?" Louis stood frozen. Xavier watched emotions cycle across his father's face: pain, understanding, devastation. Louis moved slowly to her bedside and knelt to her eye level. "I'm Louis. This is Xavier." His voice was gentle but honest. "Your mama told us about you. She said I'd get to go home soon. That you'd take me home." Sophia's small hand reached for Louis's. "I've never had a home. Just here. But Mama says homes have kitchens and backyards and you get to stay forever." Xavier felt tears burn. This wasn't theoretical anymore. This was a real child asking for the one thing everyone deserves: somewhere to belong. Louis held Sophia's hand carefully, mindful of the drip. "Sophia, you deserve a home. You deserve a family who chooses you. Don't you choose me?" Her voice got smaller. "I'm going to help you," Louis said, voice thick. "But I need time to figure out the right way. Can you be patient with me?" Sophia nodded, confusion clouding her features. They stayed an hour. Read her stories. Learned her favorite colors and animals. When they left, Xavier saw his father cry for the first time since his mother's funeral. In the parking lot, Louis called Alexandra. "The wedding is off," he said firmly. "But I won't abandon Sophia. We'll figure something out, honestly this time. No more lies." On the other end, Alexandra's voice broke with relief and grief. "Thank you. Thank you." 14 months later, Xavier stood in Alexandra's hospital room watching her take her last breath. She'd made it longer than doctors predicted, every extra day a gift spent with Sophia. Hospice had brought Sophia's bed into Alexandra's room so they could be together at the end. "Thank you," Alexandra whispered to Louis in those final hours. "For giving me time with her. For not hating me." "I never hated you," Louis said honestly. "I just needed the truth." When she died, Sophia cried in her mother's arms, and Louis held them both. Over those 14 months, something unexpected happened. Louis and Xavier visited weekly, not from obligation, but because somewhere along the way, Sophia worked her way into their hearts honestly. They brought books and art supplies. Xavier taught her to draw birds like his mother once taught him. Louis built Sophia a window box garden so she could grow flowers. After Alexandra's funeral, they faced the question. The social worker waited with paperwork, ready to transfer Sophia back to foster care. "We don't have to," Louis told Xavier in the parking lot. "We can walk away with clear consciences." Xavier looked at his father, then back at the building. "Do you want to walk away?" Louis was quiet. "No. But this is forever, Xavier. Medical appointments. Adaptive equipment. A child who might not live to adulthood. I won't do it unless you're sure." "I'm sure," Xavier said. And he was. The adoption took 6 months. Family therapy helped them navigate grief, expectations, and the complicated legacy of how they'd become a family. When Sophia finally came home, portable oxygen tank and all, she stood in their living room crying. "This is mine. Forever mine. Forever yours," Louis promised. On the first anniversary of Alexandra's death, they visited her grave together. Sophia placed flowers, the same kind from her window box. Xavier stood beside his father and sister, understanding finally what his mother's ethics textbooks couldn't teach. Life wasn't simple. It was Alexandra's desperate love and wrong choices. Louis's hurt and eventual grace. Xavier's courage to speak truth and wisdom to forgive complexity. "Was Mama bad?" Sophia asked quietly. Xavier thought about it. Really thought. "No. She was scared and loved you so much she made mistakes. But she also gave us each other." Louis squeezed both their hands. A family not built on deception, but on the harder, truer foundation of conscious choice. Sometimes love required breaking before it could be rebuilt right. So what do you think? Was Xavier right to stop the wedding? Was Alexandra wrong for her desperate plan? Or is the truth somewhere in between? Let us know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories that challenge what we think we know about right and wrong. Because sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most beautiful families.